So one of the episodes just after I ended the UC Davis show series, the epic 6 episode series, a few episodes of my podcast after that ended. So it was, probably end of February. I remember telling you that, the UC Davis show is over, but the effects of it are yet, there's still effects that are to come. The UC Davis show still has fruit to bear. Is that what I say here? The UC Davis show, that series on my show back in January, halfway through February, where I took Thursday Thoughts, which is a weekly series where Gary May and his wife Lachelle sit down or stand up. They pause, they take a moment, and they kind of update, their followers about what's happening with UC Davis, what's happening with them. It's kind of a look into the life, uh, or of the Chancellor, right? And I took that and I repackaged it and I turned it into kind of like the weekend update from Saturday Night Live. I sat down there, had the thing here with a picture, some graphic, and then I would make a joke. And it was just what they were saying, but then every line of what I said was a joke. And that was back in January, February. And then the series ended. I made a podcast episode, why I had to end the UC Davis show, the most viewed episode of this podcast, behind the debut episode. And a lot of people liked that series. It did a nice thing for my channel. It got people to discover my channel, people working for Davis, students and members of the community of Davis. It was a good thing for my channel. You can see a little bump right around that time. Except it's a good bump, no mosquitoes involved. Yeah. And after it ended, you could say, okay, well, that's it. That's over, right? There's nothing else to come from it. But like I said, in one of these podcast episodes following the end of that series, I said, wait, not yet. The series is over, yeah, but the effects of it are coming up, are yet to come. Is that how you say that? Who knows? Because back in January, when I made episode 1, it was really just episode 1. Something interesting happened also with episode 1. I don't know why it happened. I don't remember if I made episode 1 I think I made it on a Friday, right? So Thursday Thoughts gets posted Thursday. I think on Friday. I was real quick. I came up with the jokes Thursday, and then Friday, I think I recorded it, edited it, and put it out. If it wasn't Friday, it was Saturday morning. And it had a good response. People were like, this is cool, They were like, maybe it's going to be this standoff thing, just this one episode. Hey, how cool is that? But the way I ended the UC Davis show was by saying, have a good week 1, y'all, because it was week 1 of winter quarter. And that, in my eyes, I don't know if it came across as that, when I say have a good week 1, that means I'm setting up for next week to say have a good, week 2. Or 3 at that point, right? Because we just had 1. So I said, have a good week 2. Maybe that's how I ended episode 1. Have a good week 2, y'all. But after I posted that, that following Monday, I think it was, something happened. I don't know what happened. I asked around. I still don't really get what happened. But that Monday, there was a spike in views on that episode. It kind of just got real amplified for some reason. Someone or something picked it up and then it got 200 views that day. Usually a video, gets the amount of views the first day and then it kind of tapers off as time goes on. But this one had a weird resurgence 3 days after it was posted. I've seen resurgences in videos before, but never like that in just a few days after. And there's some things you got to take into account, right? It's the start of a week. So if someone at Davis saw it and they're working for Davis, that makes sense. They come back into the work week and they're like, ooh, share it with the team. The team's looking at it because everyone's at work. I was like, maybe that's what it is. But I don't know. I still don't know today what that surge was. But part of that surge was Chancellor Gary May, seeing episode 1 of that series. Now, I don't know how much of it he watched, but I know that he at least by that time knew it existed, you know? And that's when I made this podcast episode, you know? The Chancellor of UC Davis knows who I am. That's when I came on his radar. I don't know if I had already been on it or not, but that's like for sure when I could say he's at least acknowledged me. You know, there were the Facebook posts and everything. And I know, you know, a team works behind his social media, but I talked to one of my managers for Stream, and she told me, yes, she asked Gary May, you know, would you be interested in doing something with Gauruv? I'm Gauruv in this story. And he said yes. And that is really, you know, there's more stuff that happens. Some like planning, got to send a proposal, all this stuff. But that was really the genesis of why this interview happened. And so now fast forward to September 15th, this past Wednesday, I interviewed Gary May. You know, I have the 10 questions. I asked more questions because I realized we were going quite fast. So there were some questions I never actually intended, like they weren't planned to ask. Like I had an original proposal of questions. I had 12 questions I sent in, and they were like approved. There were some notes put in. But then like 2 days before the interview, you know, September 13th, I read the questions again. And I really didn't like them. I was not in love, you know, like I once was. I didn't like what I'd put down. And I talked to my mom, and she had given a good note. And after that, I was like, oh man, I really want to change this. So I revised the questions, and I sent an email out with 10 new questions. So these were the questions I was going to ask. I did. But I noticed we were going, you know, halfway through. I was like, oh man, we're only like 10, 15 minutes into this. Or no, we're only like, 7, 10 minutes into this. We're halfway through the questions. I was like, I can start adding more. Because we had a whole hour. It was 2 to 3 p.m. And so I remember from the 12 questions before, there were some questions I did want to touch on, but I cut because I was like, it's not right. But then through the, you know, the vibe of the podcast, I'm even stuck saying podcast now for just normal conversations. I think if you record a conversation, boom, that's now a podcast, right? That's the world we live in. Even a conversation with a friend, you're like, yeah, we did a podcast. Sorry, we had a conversation. Not everything in this world is for the internet. We can just talk. But nope, I've been conditioned to think everything internet-wise, you know? But I noticed, you know, halfway through our talk that, oh man, we're really, really getting through this. I can use more of our time because we're not going to run out of it. I remember one of the notes when I sent in the questions was, you know, maybe a good idea, just pick your 5, 6 favorite questions. That way you for sure get to them. But during the interview, I realized, I could ask 5 or 6 more questions. And so there were some follow-up questions, but one of the questions I took from the old questions was, I don't know if the interview is up by now. This isn't really a spoiler, but there's a question about boba. Boba was on the other proposal. It was not in my current question deck. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a piece of paper on that table that I'm sitting at. This question's not on it, but I was like, man, we're really speeding through this. Let's ask about boba, you know? And I always heard from people that Gary May's not too into boba, and I knew that. So I used it as a gambit, you know? You familiar with the chess tactic? I'm not. I don't even play chess. I don't get what all the pieces do. I do get what they do. I just have no interest in playing. But a gambit is when you like sacrifice a piece for like a greater payoff in the future. I think that's what it is. You know, you sacrifice a piece so that you have like a bigger win in the end. I knew that Boba was the gambit because everyone's like, he doesn't really, man, you know, Boba, it's not his thing. I was like, that's fine. That's actually perfect. I need him to say that he doesn't drink boba because I use that to bring in sweet and savory. And then that got transformed into Davis Creamery, and that got it was great. Hopefully I'm not, you know, actually you will see the interview before this. This is Monday morning at 1 a.m. I won't have time to edit this until probably like Monday night. That's when you'll probably see this. So I hope the interview comes out before then. So none of this is like a spoiler. But, you know, I knew going in, I was like, I even told my mom after the interview, I was like, that went great because I needed him to be like, yeah, not really big into boba because I'm also not big into boba, you know? I said in the interview, I'm kind of a boba noob myself, which is true. No lies detected. But I needed to be able to relate with him on that as an excuse to be like, well, have you heard about sweet and savory? And then I learned, his wife and kids love it. And I was like, what? That's so crazy. Um, and I actually went to Sweet and Savory over the weekend. So, like, these past few days after the interview had happened. And I asked Brian. Brian's one of the owners of Sweet and Savory. I love seeing him. He works there on weekends at least on Saturday, because that's usually when I go. And I asked Brian, I was like, did you know that Lachelle May and her daughters, like the rest of Gary May's family, did you know they love this place? And he was like, yeah, I don't follow social media stuff too much, but I was hearing from, the other people that, yeah, they actually, Lachelle comes in here at least once a week. I was like, no way. Huh. Man, I knew Lachelle had good taste. First Gary, now Sweet and Savory. She is firing on all cylinders. But I found out that, oh my God, Lachelle May and Gary May's daughters love Sweet and Savory. Oh my God. I fit into the family perfectly. No. But I think it went well. I'm happy with it. I think it went really well. I have a hard time. Do you know this? I probably never talked about this. I have a hard time feeling like proud about stuff. Like, I don't like giving myself like credit on shit because I truly don't think I deserve much credit for many things. Like, I do enough of my part for things that like get done, but like I don't think I deserve much credit. I think I don't like people that give themselves a lot of credit, So I think I like overcompensate, and I try not to give myself any credit because I think it's dumb to give yourself credit. No, that's not right. Because in work, it's important sometimes to give yourself credit. I remember 2 internships ago, I had a one-on-one with one of my mentors at the time, and he was like, how's the internship going? I was like, it's good, it's good. He's like, you learning? I was like, I think so. Yeah, I think it's just a lot of technical work, but I think it's all good. Sometimes I feel stumped, but that's great. That's what internships are for, to learn. And he told me, can I tell you your strengths and weaknesses? I was like, sure. He said, your strengths is that you can take criticism. He's like, nothing really like, phases you. Like, you take criticism very well. I was like, thank you. And then, I emphasize that, none of this is personal. When you're at work, people are just trying to make you better. Sometimes, the way people communicate it seems a little personal, but you got to remind yourself at the end of the day, none of this shit's personal. They're just trying to, make the job easier for everyone. So once you understand that, it's hard to take anything personally. So I was like, yeah, that's dope. I'm glad that's happening. He said, but your weakness, and I was like, oh, here we go. My arms, right? You saw me carrying those boxes? They don't do much? I know, yeah. That diamond push-up I tried earlier? Yeah, no, I couldn't do it. Yeah, no, you saw that? Damn. He's like, no, I don't know much about your upper body, but you suck at advertising yourself. I was like, huh. What does that mean? He was like, you don't let us know when you're good at things. Like, if you're doing something or you're good at something, you don't like convey that at all. I was like, huh. It's very on brand. That's good. That's good. That's my brand right there. But as I was cleaning my apartment today for the first time in 2 months, it got real sloppy. It looked terrible in this whole place. I finally cleaned it though today because I was in a certain headspace and I was like, this is going to help. So I cleaned my apartment and I don't know what it was. Something magic about it. Maybe it's the Clorox just directly on my skin, but I was wiping the bathroom like counter with these Clorox wipes and it kind of like hit me. My mom said it was the fumes, but I thought it was just maybe, me doing hard work, But it hit me. I was like, hey, you know what? That interview, that's something you should be proud of. And so my mom was like, what's this, guy? You're saying you're proud of yourself? I was like, well, no, I didn't say that. I'm just saying I know it's right to feel proud in this moment, but I still don't know if I can say I'm proud. But I know it's the right feeling. And it's ironic. I don't know if you know this. My name, Gauruv, it means pride. And I made this is the joke I've been using forever. It's my go-to. I always say, "Oh yeah, Gauruv, it means pride." I guess the parents really missed the mark on that one, huh? But I finally like felt, you know, I with these things I don't know if I should feel proud. You know what it is? I think I usually wait for people's response to gauge if I should feel proud or not, but I am like sincerely like proud of myself for like doing this. Um, I mean, obviously, there's so many people that allowed me to get to this point to have this opportunity, but then like actually doing it and like fully editing the interview, and looking at that 17-minute, 51-second final project, I was like, damn, that's like something to be proud of. So I think it went really well. But that's you don't give a shit about that. You give a shit about my talking with him. What was he like, huh? Meeting the man in person? What was that like? Come on, get into the juice of it. Bite into that red meat and let the blood spill down your face. What did he just say? Yeah, the shirt was originally white. I just ate really rare meat and all the blood flowed down and stained my shirt. This is what happened. So I get there, about 45 minutes before the actual interview, just to, like set stuff up, like the backgrounds that we chose for the TVs behind him. I didn't really have those picked yet. So I asked these two, these two interns for Stratcom, Alexa and Emma, who are the best. I asked them, hey, can I get your opinion on this? And I showed them all these backgrounds that I had available that the Stratcom sent me. And they helped me pick those. Well, they helped me pick the one with the trees. And then I was like, I also like the yellow. So let's go yellow on the other side. I got there early to do that. Then we had to set up my background, the orange background, because it was gone. It was just like a blue screen. And then, you got to do the mic check. And so I'm doing the mic check. And you saw those headphones, By the ways, I didn't tell anyone this because there was no like real time to bring it up. But the headphones, I shrunk them, all the way down. Like I didn't make them bigger. I made them as small as they could be. You'll see in the interview. I hope you already watched it so that you don't get distracted by this. But the whole interview, I keep adjusting the headphones because they like couldn't get a good purchase on my head. Like they weren't hanging on anything because my hair didn't let them like establish themselves. So it kept like sliding off. Real loose up there, real loosey-goosey in the brain region, in the cranium, you feel me? And so the whole interview, I'm just going like, But we gotta do a test, and I gotta put those headphones on so I can like hear Tim, who was on the other end. Tim was talking, and then Alicia, shout out Alicia, Tim. She was testing the audio, and then Tim was like talking, so I had to put the headphones on to hear him. And to put the headphones on, I don't know if you know this. I avoided saying it last week, and I forgot what the context of it was. But I was telling a story last week, and I told you in the story, I took off my glasses, and then I paused. It's because I wear hearing aids, right? Where are they? They're over there. I wear hearing aids, and I don't like telling people I wear hearing aids. I got my first set of hearing aids in second grade. I wore them for about a year, and I was like, this sucks. It just sounded like constant static. Like I'd be in my room, and I hear like someone get a plate from the kitchen, and I hear that shit, and I'm like... So it was just annoying, because technology was shit back then. So I wore them for like a few months in second grade, and I stopped wearing them. And then I just developed like the ability to just read lips, and that's kind of how I got by, just reading lips and like filling in the blanks and just asking what a bunch of times. But then before I came to college, my mom made a good suggestion. She was like, college, those big lecture halls, the professors all the way down there, you're gonna have a hard time hearing people, and you don't want that to be the thing that hinders you from academic success. Yeah, I was like, that's a good point. And she's like, and eventually you're going to have to wear these hearing aids, just get used to them now. It'll be helpful for these next 4 years, or 5 now we know. And, it'll prepare you for the rest of your life. I was like, okay, fine. So I got tested, refitted, for new hearing aids, and my God, the technology nowadays, light years ahead. I mean, obviously it's a decade later. What'd I expect? The same shit? I actually did, yeah. But I was pleasantly surprised to find out, no, these hearing aids are very good. Now they got Bluetooth even. I remember I was in a club in high school, and there were, 8 officers, and 4 of them would never talk because they were committee chairs, so they were less important, because high school, what is it? High school bureaucracy, or high school. I keep thinking of the word diploma. That's not it, but it's like government shit. High school. I don't know. But the way high schools operate, we had 4 officers and we had 4 committee chairs. And the committee chairs could never talk. They just signed people in as they came in. But the 4 officers got to talk in these meetings. And I was one of the 4 officers. But I never got to talk because the other 3 loved their voice. So a lot of the time, and I never really admitted this to anyone, because why would you? But a lot of times I would be sitting there in front of, the 150 people in that club with my hearing aids in, and I'd just be listening to like Jason Derulo or something, or Megan Trainor. And I would not pay attention to those meetings at all, because guess what? They never let me talk. So I just was chilling. I would bob my head a little bit. No one knew what the hell I was doing. I wore real wacky socks in high school because I was still trying to like find my personality, which arguably still haven't found it. But I was bobbing my head, wacky socks. People were probably like, what the hell is wrong with that guy out there? No wonder they don't let him talk. But yeah, hearing aids are this like light years ahead of what they used to be. If you need hearing aids, I suggest getting them. They're really nice nowadays. But to put on these headphones to do an audio check, I wanted to take off the hearing aids, or else there'd be some feedback. And in the actual interview, I'm going to take them off. So to do the sound check, I remove the hearing aids, put them on the table. You can actually see when I do that shot, when I like edit, I do that view of just me. You can see on the table those 2 little black things. Those are my hearing aids. There's only 4 things on the joined table. It's the microphone, of course, my phone, the 10 questions I had written down with some notes, and my 2 hearing aids. And so I took off my hearing aids, and we do the audio check, and it's good. But everyone's in a mask, and, I said I rely on reading lips a lot. Well, your lips are covered when you have a mask on. So we do this audio check. And I decided to clean the specs, get a little lens cleaner going, because I want to appear clear in the interview. So I take off my glasses, I start cleaning the lenses, and my hearing aids are on the table. And that's when 2 people come into the door. And one of them starts saying something about the other person. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat what you just said? They repeat what they said. I didn't hear it. So then I stumble on over to them, and I tell them, I'm so sorry. I have the worst hearing, usually. And then I go get one of my hearing aids. I'm like, usually I got one of these in, I got, these are my ears right here, but without these, I'm pretty lost. And so I got this, a left hearing aid in my left hand, and a crumpled up like glasses cleaner with the wrapper of the glasses cleaner in my right hand. And as I'm talking to them, who turns the corner but Gary May? And Gary May goes, hey. I'm like, oh, hey. I'm like, this is not this is not really what I thought I would have in my hands when I met you. I didn't actually think I'd have anything in my hands. So I like quickly put on the table the hearing aid and the glasses cleaner. And we give each other a fist bump, and I'm like, yeah, how's it going? Do a little chit chat, You're like, oh, no, did you know I'm an engineer? He was like, no way, didn't know. I was like, electrical engineering. He was like, I was electrical engineering. I was like, I know. I spent the last day watching 2 interviews that you did. And that's actually the only interviews that really exist with Gary May. There's like 2 from 4 years ago. It's like right before he became chancellor. He did 2 interviews. It was for this like TV station, and then what do you call it, Aggie Studios. But besides that, there's no real interview where you just learn about Gary May, and that was really, I mean, part of the reason I wanted to do this interview with him was because I feel like we don't know Gary May. He's a chancellor, and that's kind of like, he talks about this in the interview. At the end of the day, he wishes people knew that he's a human being. But when you're a chancellor, you're kind of like this symbol. People, it's a very, I don't know another word for it, but it's a dehumanizing position to be in. No one really knows. You are synonymous with what you represent, and so when people attack what you represent, well, they don't know this, but that's basically attacking him. But he signed up for it. He gets it. He knows. He's a smart, durable, on the mind guy. He gets it. But he wishes, people remember that he's a human. And I feel like no one really sees him as a human, and that's really why I wanted to do this interview. I wanted to like really humanize him, because he is a human. He's an engineer, he's a father, he's a husband, he's a girl dad. He's a lot of things, He's a shake lover. He's a generous guy. But the two things I really took from him, from my, limited interaction, I would say, is he's a nice guy and he has a sense of humor. And that really checks all the boxes with me, But there's only so much you can learn about someone talking to them for what, half an hour-ish? The whole interview was like 21 minutes. There was like, a minute chit chat before that. Then we went to our respective rooms. Also, I don't know if you know this, but those rooms are like 10 feet away from each other, like 10, 15 feet away from each other. I don't know if it's clear like where we are, but like he's in that studio thing. And then like, if I look outside my window, I can see like all the people working his audio. But we're like in the same building. You'll probably see on Instagram, I probably posted, we were close enough to take like those pictures together and everything. But when we recorded, 2 separate rooms. But that was my main goal. I wanted to humanize a chancellor. I wanted to humanize Chancellor Gary May. And I hope it happened. Because, like I said, you don't know much about him. And I think it would help to know much about him. And then all the stuff we do know about him, that was from 4 years ago. And so what I did the day before this interview, what I did on September 14th, on that Tuesday, I watched both of those interviews. I took notes. That was why my phone was on the table. I had this thing, I had this notes page where I wrote down certain notes about him to refer to if I needed. I think I only referred to it once. I referred to a bunch of the notes, but I had included notes on my paper. There was only like one note I went back to. I think it was about how his greatest achievement is providing representation for like underrepresented groups. That was the one time I checked my phone because I wrote that down. That was in one of his interviews. I think it was with the Aggie Studios interview. So the day before, September 14th, I watched both of those interviews, and I watched like 3 or 4 episodes of Hot Ones because I wanted to, like, Sean Evans is a fantastic interviewer. And so I was like, Sean Evans does stuff right, but what is it that he does right? So I watched these 3 episodes. I don't remember what episodes I watched. I remember I watched the Lord episode, and my God, she killed it. She was not phased at all. She's amazing. Like, I had listened to some of her music, but, after just seeing her kill those wings, I wanted to listen to everything she's ever made. She's a fucking baller. I remember I listened to the Lord episode. The Ed Sheeran episode, that was really good. And then another episode, I forgot who else I watched. But I wanted to see what Sean did. And I noticed with Sean, and this is something I picked up from 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I interviewed UDJ. I don't know if you guys remember that video. But something I noticed in that video, and someone made a comment about it. It's very funny. I'll actually put the comment right here. It was something along the lines of like, oh, let's just get a a video of Gauruv just saying yeah over and over. And I realized I did this because when I was editing it, I was like, shut up, you idiot, stop saying it. So in normal conversation, this is what you do, right? Someone's talking and you reassure them that you actively listen. You reassure them that you're along with them on the journey. You say, yeah, mm-hmm, yeah, oh, mm-hmm. Like you do that a lot. But when you interview someone and it's on the internet, or you just interview someone, but especially when it's on the internet, you do not do those verbal active listening things. They're just annoying. They get in the way of the interview. And I noticed Sean he doesn't do that, but he completely, does the right thing, which is just nodding a lot and smiling when you need to. And so that's what I took away from Sean. And it's something I already knew from interviewing Yudi, was that if you interview someone, just nod and smile. But when you talk to someone in real life, add those verbal cues and say, yeah, mm-hmm, yes. And you can still see it in the interview sometimes. I can't stop myself, but I say, yeah, So that's what I took from there. And then it was the way that Sean, because there were things I found out about Gary May, like Gary May in an interview said, if there's anyone to blame for me being chancellor, it's the former president of Georgia Tech, his alma mater, Wayne Clough. Wayne Clough was an engineering guy. I think it was civil engineering. Don't quote me. But he was the president of Georgia Tech. And then he became like a Smithsonian or something? I'm probably getting that wrong. But in that interview, he says, if there's anyone to blame for me really being chancellor, it's probably Wayne Clough. So I looked up Wayne Clough. I looked up how to say his name. I remembered how Gary May said it. I made a little note in parentheses. I said Clough, like pronounced like bluff. But I didn't know how to work that in. I didn't know how to work in that I did my research. So I looked at what Sean did, and I noticed what Sean did was he wouldn't like linger on the research point. He would just kind of drop it in and then keep going. He'd be like, and on your Instagram, you said this one time. So what do you think about this? And you had that childhood friend named this. So what do you think about that? I was like, wow. Like I was trying to, when I originally wrote the question involving Wayne Clough, I'd started with Wayne Clough. I had this big build up, and I was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was something stupid. It was just, I spent too much time proving that I knew who he was. And then when I listened to Sean, I was like, oh, just drop it in and then move on. And let them be impressed if they are, and if they're not, whatever. Just move on. Don't make a big deal of it. And so in that question, I just dropped Wayne Clough in. And I don't know if this is why he reacted the way he did, but I noticed when I asked that question, I think he took a deep breath and said, wow. And I felt so good in that moment when he took a deep breath and had to say, wow, huh. I was like, yes, it got him to think. He didn't just have to say an answer that he said thousands of times to some people that just are trying to get, Gary May's name in something. I actually I felt like I got to, touch on that human side of him. And I was so excited when he said, wow. That was such a special moment for me. And then when I saw it in editing, I was like, oh, that's so great. But then we do the interview, it takes about 21 minutes. I edited it down to 17 minutes and 51 seconds because I took out, sometimes we say, sometimes we think about a question. So I just kind of took that out. It's about 3 minutes of extra stuff. And then we took some pictures. You can see those on Instagram. And, yeah, that was that. We just said some stuff, talked for a minute or two, and then he was off to his next engagement. And then I got the footage from Alicia. We talked about a lot of stuff. I learned about multicam editing. So thank you so much, Alicia. That saved me so much time. And honestly, I don't know how else I would have edited this thing if you didn't teach me about multicam editing. But yeah, that's dope. I I think I've talked about this, right? I love creative people and funny people. I like artists and funny people. And so when I got to talk to her, this creative person, this artist, I was so excited. I was so happy. She was telling me like I love talking about editing stuff. I love talking about like making things and jokes with people that do that. Like that's their thing. Those are my favorite people. So it was a great experience. It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad, and I think I'm proud. I still won't say I'm proud, but I think I have a really good case to be proud of this. And I don't want to, I think I said pretty much all I wanted to say about the interview. I don't want to talk about too much of what we talk about. I just want the interview to do all the talking. So watch that, and then that was kind of the backstory of it. Um, the other thing that happened was the day before that. The day I watched those interviews and those Hot One episodes. Um, that was the day the world found out that Norm Macdonald had passed away. And that sucked. I saw it on Twitter. I saw Norm's face and then, some text. And I was like, oh, I wonder what he's up to. And then I said, Norm Macdonald has passed away at age of 61 after, 9-10 year battle with cancer. And I don't know, celebrity deaths are weird, right? You have no attachment to them. So what's the big deal? Do you have a parasocial relationship? Is that what you're saying? No. But I don't know. I don't get too shaken up about like celebrity deaths. The only like celebrity death that has pretty much hit me is like Kobe. Kobe's death like hit the world in a very unique way. I remember that morning. What was it, January 26th? I remember I woke up. I think it was like 9 a.m. I think it was a Saturday. It was a weekend, I think. I remember I looked at my phone. I was like, 9 a.m. I can go to sleep for a little bit more. Went to sleep. I think I woke up at what, 11:30 or something? And I'd woken up, and on my phone, there was just a text from my uncle, and all it said was, dude, Kobe just died. And it was such a weird moment. I was in this bed right here. And it was just weird to think, like, I don't know. When I'd woken up earlier, Kobe was alive, and I went to sleep. And the next time I woke up, Kobe was dead. And his daughter, and all those other girls, and, some of their family. And I don't know, Norm's death has been hitting me because he was just an extremely funny guy. I was talking to TC. TC's one of my managers, and she helped me a lot with this Gary May interview process. She was the one I talked to the most about it, and she's amazing. And I was messaging her, and I sent her, one of, I think probably my favorite emoji, the emoji with the cowboy hat. And she's like, oh, the cowboy hat reminds me of Norm. And I was like, yeah, Norm. And she's like, oh, like, do you know about Norm? I was like, yeah. And she's like, I would have thought you were too young to know about Norm. And I was like, well, thank you. Still got it, huh? But I was like, yeah, I've had to do some catching up with his SNL stuff, but I watched a lot of his clips. Like, anytime he's on a guest on a late night show, like, I've seen every clip of his Conan guest appearances. Him and Letterman. But, I don't know. I've been watching Norm clips straight for the past, 5 days. I just listened to Conan do, an impromptu episode of his podcast about Norm. I watched a 37-minute episode of Bob Saget's podcast, which was basically just him talking about, his best friend that he loved, Norm. Just trying to work through it. And I was talking about this with my mom today, that I feel like this is kind of hitting me. And she's like, why? And I was like, the answer I gave her was, I was like, well, Norm was just a really funny guy. And now he's dead. And that was really the only explanation I had. But I started thinking about it more, and I don't know, there's something very tragic about losing a funny person. Because I think, like I just kind of mentioned, like funny people, I think, at least for me, they make the world livable. Like without humor, I don't, I think the world is a pretty dark place. And maybe that's why I like use humor so much, is because it kind of makes this whole thing okay. And so when we lose one of the greatest contributors to that, sense of hope, I suppose, that shit sucks. Um, I saw a clip. Eric Stone Street was on Bobby Lee and Kalila's podcast, Tiger Belly, like 2 years ago. And Eric Stone Street said that they were talking about the Chris Farley documentary. And Eric Stone Street said, one of my friends, Pat Finn, said something in the documentary that I'll never forget. And that was that, Chris had spent, he was surrounded by so many amazing and funny people. And probably the most tragic part about his funeral was seeing all those amazing and funny people crying. And that shit really stuck with me. I remember I watched that clip. I don't know when I watched it, but I went back and watched it again today. And it's funny, that clip was posted on Tiger Belly Clips, where they do their highlights. That clip was posted on December 19, 2019. I don't know if you remember the first episode of this podcast, but December 19th is my birthday. It was just weird to hear that, because that's how I feel. There's something truly tragic about seeing, an amazing and funny person not be a part of this world anymore. I told my mom, I was like, the coolest part about Norm is that he thought every joke he told was funny. And so that it didn't matter if who he was telling it to, the audience, thought it was funny, because it was good enough that he found it funny. And to me, that was the funniest thing about him. The fact that he loved it so much. And yeah, I guess this hasn't happened before. Like a comedian that I'm very familiar with passing away. Because all the comedians that die, like Patrice O'Neill, I don't even know who else, right? Chris Farley, Richard Pryor. Like I didn't know much about them, so it's hard to feel any connection to them. But like I had talked with friends about Norm. Like actually the day, like right after I found out Norm passed away, there was a guy I texted just because I needed to text someone about it. But I don't know. There's something sad about losing a funny person. In Bob Saget's like 37-minute thing, he said, why can't unfunny people die? And he was like, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Saget, what are you saying? But I got what he was saying, Anyways. At the end of the Gary May interview, I said I wasn't going to tell you what we talked about, but whatever. I guess rules were meant to be broken, right? Wasn't that Norm's motto? Someone would tell him, don't talk about that. That's exactly what he would talk about. Bob Saget's roast, before he went on, Bob Saget talked about this. They said, really lean into him, Norm. Because they said that, Norm went the complete opposite direction. He just read a bunch of, jokes from like joke books. He was like, oh, you want me to like really lean in? Nah, I'm not going to. You don't want me to talk about OJ? I'm going to talk about OJ. But at the end of the Gary May interview, I said, Thank you to the audience. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes on this. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible. And when I heard that, I realized it sounds like I'm just saying without the people working behind the scenes, it wouldn't be possible. But I want you to know that when I said without you, it wouldn't be possible, I'm talking about the audience and the people that work behind the scenes. Because for me to have the opportunity to interview the Chancellor, about to enter my fifth year at Davis, it, of course, there were a bunch of things that had to happen, but a big reason why I even got in that position on September 15th, this past Wednesday, is because of the people that watch my videos, because of my audience. And so when I say thank you to the audience and thank you to the people that work behind the scenes, I want you to know that what I'm really saying is thank you to the audience. It wouldn't be possible without you, because if you weren't watching my shit and, validating what I do, these past 17 minutes, 51 seconds wouldn't be possible. Thank you for watching, Raj. Congratulations on your engagement, Alec. And thank you to the audience, because without you guys, none of this would be possible. I'll talk at you next week. Bye.